Welcome back to another episode of Toxiris Discovers. Today we got 3 albums I picked for myself and 4 by the community. Before you start watching this video, suggest some albums in the comments. Let's get into it.
It's the game, we done came on the game.
So, as always, starting off with the albums I picked for myself, which I'm going to start it off with London Class. London Class by Knucks. Yeah, that was a terrible joke. It's only because he's a UK rapper, a very good one, to say that. I think I already had a Knucks project on one of the earliest episodes of Toxiris Discovers, and I really enjoyed that project. And he recently came out with a new single called Leon the Professional, and I really liked that single, so I was like, yeah, might as well check another Knucks project out. I did, and he did not disappoint. This project, as always, for Knucks, has a great lyricism, great vibes, and a great beat selection, because this man knows what instrumentals he has to use for his flows to sound very, very nice. Obviously, the project is not anything extraordinarily great. I think it has some flaws. I think some of the interludes or some of the skits are not as good as they could be. I feel like some of the tracks more on the second half of the album are not as good as they could be. The first half is really good, and the second half does have some great tracks, but I feel like overall he could have done better on a couple tracks. Still, I think it's a great project. These two would probably be my favorite tracks of the project.
They can send their kings on horses to divide us. I leave the fortune and the royalty behind just to walk into your mouth like a black man in Kazakhstan. From where man get bored at if they ain't have plans. As that stands, I know the road.
Besides these, there are a couple good tracks too, so if you haven't heard this yet, you might want to check this out. Overall, I would rate the album as 7 out of 10. Then we get into an album that, well, let's just say YouTube homie of mine suggested it. If he sees this, he know who he is. Run the Jewels 2 by Run the Jewels, which consists of Killer Mike and LP, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let's just say I never heard a Run the Jewels album, I never heard an LP album, and I never heard a Killer Mike album. So I mean, I knew what I was going into because I heard a couple tracks, and like if you watch a bit of the hip hop compilation scene, then you see these guys popping up left and right. At least in the more underground scene, like people like Fluffy Pants, Martyr Music Mayhem, like they really like Run the Jewels, as far as I remember. Anyway, I think this project is kind of overhyped. That does not mean it is a bad project. I think it's really, really good. I think the rapping is very good. I think the beats are really good. I think most of the things on this project are really, really good. But I feel like some of the people kind of overhyped this project in the sense of some people say like this project is a 10 out of 10. Like this is a perfect project. Like no flaws, so good. Oh my god. And I'm like, no, because some of these tracks just, even though the rapping is solid, they just sound pretty, I don't want to say boring, because that's what like kids say when they listen to old music. They'd be like, man, that shit boring. And that's not what I mean. It's not boring. It's just, it lacks a bit of excitement and a bit of, like, it lacks some interesting elements. Because sometimes not even the lyricism is really interesting. Sometimes it really is. For example, on the intro track, it really is. But, like, sometimes I'm just like, okay, this is just, it sounds okay. It's not the greatest lyricism, but it's still good. Overall, I would rate the album 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a good project. These two would be my favorite tracks.
These are spoken, a man of the pure devotion, get magnetized to the ground while the falcons of murder closing.
Used to write raps in the traps as I sat in the rain, and I pray that God give me a lane, give me a lane, give me.
That being said, let's get to the last one I picked for myself, which is Good Love by Nafe Smallz. This is kind of random because I just heard 2 tracks of this album. Might be my favorites off the album, I'm not gonna lie. And I was like, yo, these 2 are great. The project only has 9 tracks. Let me get into that shit. Well, I did, and what can I say? I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It is, please, if you listen to this project, don't expect anything groundbreaking. It is auto-tune rap, Nafe Smallz, how he always does it, with the catchy hooks, with not really outstanding production, not really anything topically that is very interesting. It just sounds good. And as some of y'all might notice, I really think the sound is the most important part of an album. And well, this album does have a really good sound. I think it has some extremely catchy hooks, and just overall, like, listening to this album is just a vibe. You feel me? Like, it's nothing really where you have to think a lot. It just runs by, you jam to it, you add a couple tracks to your playlist, that's it. Nothing really complicated, nothing where you have to put any effort into listening, because for some albums you have to, in my opinion. And for this one, not at all. So I think it's a really enjoyable, light listen, and I would say it's 8 out of 10. These two would be my favorite tracks from the project.
I roll my weed and I prevail. This shit go deeper than a well. I hit the trap and do it well, baby. I just roll my weed, now I'm back in the zone. I'm fucking with Lil Shreddy and she bad to the bone. I know them haters, they be...
Then we finally get into the albums suggested by the community. The first one being Heart Full of Rage by Tyla Yaweh, suggested by JVF714. Once again, this project is kind of like falling off after the first half. I know I already said that for like the Knucks album before, but it's even more noticeable for this one, because on the first half we have a couple really good tracks, even a track featuring French Montana. See, I'm everything but a French Montana fan, but he didn't ruin this track. Obviously he didn't deliver a verse that was memorable in any way, shape or form, but he did not ruin the track, and I appreciate him for that. See, I'm at a point where if French Montana does not ruin a track, I appreciate it. See, I'm good, because I can listen to the track. I think it's a really good track, and even though there is French Montana on it, I don't have to skip his part. I can just let it run by and be like, it was pretty solid. Other than that, there was a pretty good P&B Rock feature on this album, and I mean, that's the only reason I ever heard of this album. Actually, I think it's again a really catchy album. Nothing that's lyrically great at all. Just sounds good. Talking about drugs, talking about girls, talking about money. Like, really, lyrically, you don't get anything from this. Again, just catchy hooks and catchy vibes, and just again a very easy listen. But I think this one is not as catchy and as well sounding as Good Love by Nafe Smallz. I think it's still a very solid album, but for me, it's not like every track is as good. And as I said, the second half is kind of as well. So I would give this one a 7 out of 10, which is still a great project. It's just not as good as Nafe Smallz project. These two would be my favorite tracks. After that, we get into the next project.
I just went through life all today. Fuck around, post some more today. Who the young nigga putting on for the city? 100 pack. This girl getting loose. Off the goose. We gon' take a shot, call it salute.
So, the next project we got, suggested by the man, Kieran Cartwright. HardHead by Duwap Kain. Last time we had a Duwap Kain project on the series, I fucking hated it. It was 20 tracks long, and I was sitting here being like, I hate my damn life. Now I'm here saying 23 minutes long, 11 tracks. Honestly, it could be worse. It could be worse. Not only because of the length, which I really appreciate, honestly, because if this would have been longer, it probably would have felt a lot worse. But there were some tracks that actually sounded pretty okay. Like, again, it's not really the style of music I go for, and this very heavily auto-tuned sound does sound really annoying to me most of the time. But on this album, Duwap made it. Like, he got a couple tracks that were manageable to listen to. These two would be my favorites. And yeah, well, overall, what can I say to the project? I think it's a pretty okay listen. If you overall like the sound, I'm pretty sure you love this. If you like me and you don't really like this sound a lot, but you're trying to get into it maybe, then I think this could be a great start, honestly. So overall, I would say it's a 6 out of 10. Could really be worse. And yeah, it's solid.
Damn, I used to be a thief. Yeah, now I get money in my sleep. I'm all about my K, like my first name Bladee, homie. Bladee see my K, now she can't get up.
Let's get to the second to last project, which is Eversince by Bladee, suggested by Syphic. I mean, I did enjoy the last Bladee project a little bit, but just this one is better in my opinion. Like, this one has a couple hooks that just are catchy, and that's something that if your album is not like really that good, a couple catchy hooks can really upgrade it, in my opinion, more than many other things can. I mean, a couple good beats can also, but it's not that many things that can be this big of an upgrade if there's only few of them. Anyway, I think this project does have a couple catchy hooks. It does have a couple interesting beats, and overall, I think this is just a way more mature and way more well-produced Bladee album than the other one was. So I would overall give this a 7 out of 10. And obviously, I can't forget that these two would be my favorite tracks from the project.
Over me, let go of me. You don't know me. You ghost there. It's the ghost of October. Summer's over.
Now we're getting to the last project of the episode. All My Heroes Are Cornballs by JPEGMAFIA, suggested by the man Lorson. Well, this project is weird. No, I'm kidding. This is an interesting project because this is the third JPEGMAFIA project I've ever heard. I've heard his first project, which I can't remember the name of currently. That was pretty good. I've heard LP, which I really liked. Like, it was one of my favorite projects of 2021. And then there is this one. I've heard a lot of positive critiques for this one. Like, I know CDTV loves it. I think Fantano loves it. Like, I've seen a lot of people love this album. I think Sean C is a big fan of it. Because when it released in 2019, a lot of, like, the end-of-year lists included this album. But I really don't see the hype. Like, I think LP is a lot. And I'm talking a lot better. Like, it's a JPEGMAFIA project, so the production and all the experimental elements are very, very interesting and can sound good at times. And for example, especially the sounds good. But here there are just a couple too many elements that just sound too forced. Like, it just sounds like it's experimental for the sake of being experimental. Not like you just try something because you think it might sound good. More like you try it just so you can say, oh, this was an experimental track. But that's just my thoughts to it. That's just what I feel for it. You can tell me what you think about this project. I still think it is a very solid project. I mean, I still think JPEGMAFIA can rap, can produce. I don't know if he produces himself. The project is overall well executed. I just don't think I can give it as high as a rating as I gave to LP, for example. So I would say this project, 7.5 out of 10. Overall, a very solid project, just not as good as I heard many people say.
Pray, pray, pray. Pray you get comfy in your disguise. Pray for my thoughts on the other side. Amen. I wanna rock your world. I wanna be your girl. You wanna take me.
With that being said, suggest some albums for the next episode of Toxiris Discovers, and have a great day, evening, whatever you're having, morning, I don't know. Have a great one.
Remember back then, all them hoes ain't want me. Now I'm ballin', all them same hoes on me. Mama told me that this came with the money and the motherfucking fame. Even though I feel the same, I'm that nigga now. I'm that nigga now. I'm that nigga now. I'm that nigga now.